planned on going down there for the landing, or?
No, we had not. I have seen a landing before. I went with my daughter once before. At the actual landing site, you do not see any of the crew anyway, so we just thought it would be better to wait till he got home to Houston, and then we could go down and actually visit with him, hear about his impressions on the flight and that type of thing.
Mrs. McCool, your son will be so many people's lives tonight across the country. What is it that you want them to know about your son?
Well, I think it's a hard question. I think they should know he was very dedicated to what he was doing. He was, you know, an excellent pilot on it. I think he is very oriented toward humanity, and he was actually a very deeply religious young man as well, and just very interested in children. And one of his goals, you know, after he finished his career with the military, was to work with teaching and working with children, particularly in the area of science. So he was very interested in that. So,
Mrs. McCool, it is the dream of so many children growing up to be an astronaut, a dream that your son realized. Yet watching these events that happen today can be very scary for a child. I know much of this mission was based around research projects. Schools all over the country were involved in some of those experiments. What would your words be to those children who watched today's events unfold, who at one time thought, I want to be an astronaut, and might be scared by what they saw today?
Don't give up the dream on there, because science is important to all of us, and nothing is perfect, and unfortunately his crew happened to be the one where it wasn't perfect if something happened. But they should not give up the dream. They should carry on and try to realize their potential as best they can.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Cool. You've been listening to a live press conference from Audrey McCool, mother of shuttle pilot William McCool.
That was the mother of the late William McCool, the shuttle pilot. We're talking on the phone, and we're going to hold them on the phone, with Dan Salton and Doug and Betty Haviland, the brother of and uncle and aunt, respectively, of the late Laurel Clark, M.D., Navy commander, also killed today. Joining us, though, now is Miles O'Brien, who has done yeoman-like work all day today. One of the best at covering space that I know of. His knowledge is... Where were you? You were prepared to anchor the broadcast of the landing, Miles?
Well, Larry, I actually have two jobs here at CNN. I'm a weekend anchor, and I was already up and running at 7 this morning doing my anchor job. It was just so happened my two jobs kind of intersected this morning, and we were going to talk the shuttle down as we typically do, and I spent a lot of time telling folks to take a look outside the window, because we knew that the shuttle was going to streak across the continental United States, offer up a great pre-dawn light show. As a matter of fact, I told our assignment editor here, Paul Kieran, to call all the local affiliates in the path, make sure they got a camera out there, and captured this event. What they captured was not what we expected, of course.
In all your history of covering these things, had you shown particular concern over landings?
No, the truth of the matter is the first 8.5 minutes of the flight, Larry, is when we get most of the concern and most of the attention. That's when you have the potential explosive power of a small nuclear bomb, but you want to make sure it's unleashed in the right direction. And so we watch that 8.5 minutes of powered ascent, as they call it, from the launch pad all the way to space very closely. And the sense you get is once it arrives in orbit, the worst is over, if you will. Well, it's second on the list of concerns would be that return to Earth when the shuttle undergoes tremendous stress, 3,000-degree heat, and quite frankly, perhaps we didn't have as much attention paid to it as it should.
Was there any verbal warning of anything imminent?
No, it came very quickly. A very abrupt conversation, and no indication from the crew that they had any indication of what was coming up. We do know that there are a few sensor warnings which came just prior to the communication loss. The sensors went out. There was a conversation, a transmission from Rick Husband, the shuttle commander's, sort of half of a Roger, if you will, that kind of thing, and it was all over. The things happened very quickly.
We'll take a break and come right back. Miles will remain with us. We'll talk to some eyewitnesses and some more phone conversation with the relatives as well. This is a special edition of Larry King Weekend. We'll be right back.
We have booster ignition and liftoff of Space Shuttle Columbia with a multitude of national and international space research experiments.
we're a very rookie crew, a very young crew. We have 4 rookies, first-time flyers, and 3 one-time flyers. So as you can see, compared to the average shuttle crew today, we're a very inexperienced crew. So knowing that, we've gone to great lengths to make sure that our inexperience isn't something that's going to hamper us. We've worked very closely, worked hard together over the last 2 years to make this mission a success.
That was astronaut Michael Anderson. And before we talk with June Scobie Rogers, whose husband piloted the Challenger, we're going to make contact with David Neal in Rusk, Texas, who was also an eyewitness. David, what did you see?
Good evening. I was outside at the Palestine airport where we have our normal monthly fly-in, and I happen to be looking upwards, looking for any aircraft. And I look up and I see a bright object. My only guess is, you know, a passenger jet with a large contrail. But it immediately thereafterwards started fanning out the little pieces, very bright blue colors. And so I immediately called the airport manager, who then called Fort Worth Center. And supposedly we're the first people to call on that. At first, you know, that's all we thought it was, a passenger jet, and we were very afraid that we had just witnessed maybe a terrorist attack of some sort. And then going inside, waiting to hear some news of it on the news, we then learned it was the space shuttle.
David, did you see anything that looked like a fire?
I did not see anything look like a fire. I just saw what looked like the sun reflecting off an airplane, and then it started to turn a blue color, and a lot of little pieces coming off of it, and fanning out in all different directions.
Wasn't it going remarkably fast to you?
Yes, it was, and being in the aviation business for as long as I was, I didn't believe it could be at 200,000 feet like they have been reporting, because there were contrails even on the little pieces that were coming off of it, and it did seem to be going very fast.
You think it was lower than 200,000 feet based on your experience with flight?
Yes, sir, and a lot of the other pilots there at the airport believe the same thing.
That's interesting. We'll follow up on that. You thought it was lower.
Yeah,
David, thanks very much. David Neal, an eyewitness on the scene in Rusk, Texas at the airport. We'll be calling on you again. Joining us now from Chattanooga, Tennessee is June Scobie Rogers, the widow of Francis Dick Scobie, who was commander of the Challenger on January 28, 1986. Where were you this morning, June?
I was at home. I just turned on the television while I was emptying the dishwasher, and when I heard lost communications, I dropped everything. Brought back some terrible memories from my family. It's tragedy for the entire nation, isn't it?
You're the founding chairman of the Challenger Center for Space Science Education. You've stayed deeply involved in this. You've remarried, right?
I have. I met Don Rogers, a general in the Army at Arlington on Easter, and his wife had died, and we became good friends, and we've moved here to Chattanooga. And the Challenger Centers, all the families came together to say, you know, the world knew how our loved ones died, and we want the world to know how they lived. And the families for the Columbia crew must be devastated with the numbing shock that we know so well.
What would you say to them?
Just to take each day, one day at a time, to feel the love of family and friends, and to know that their loved ones have touched the face of God, that they're in God's hands. They were heroes. They were heroes like our firemen and police and our military. They were serving their country with a dream, vision of what was needed for space exploration. And they were wonderful examples to our nation.
And they knew the dangers, didn't they?
They know. When you're working in that field, in space exploration, they're pioneers for the country, for our planet. They take that risk knowingly, and that makes them even that much greater a hero.
We're going to take a break and come back with June Scobie Rogers and talk more about living after such a tragedy. She lived with it after Challenger, and today we have Columbia, and then we'll meet a major panel get-together on this special edition of Larry King Weekend. We'll have another one tomorrow night, and joining us among the guests will be one of the veteran space correspondents ever, Hugh Downs. Don't go away.